Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today is Friday, September 27th, 2019. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's Thursday night game between the Eagles and the Packers. Look back on yesterday's college football game between Navy and Memphis. Look over yesterday's baseball games. Look ahead to the final weekend of the regular season and what's to come there. WNBA Finals will pick the winner, and we'll pick the winner of Game 1. College football Week 5 picks, straight up and against the spread or a total. And same for the NFL Week 4. And I'll have my best bet of the day. Okay, we'll start with the Thursday night game between the Eagles and the Packers from Lambeau Field, in which the Philadelphia Eagles came out on top by a score of 34-27. This is a much-needed win for the Eagles. They're 2-2. Green Bay's 3-1. Carson Wentz, 16 of 27, 160 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Those numbers aren't necessarily sexy, but he made some big throws when he had to, and his running game was really a big boost. Jordan Howard, 15 carries for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. Miles Sanders, 11 carries for 72 yards. So they did a good job more on the ground than through the air. Aaron Rodgers, 34 of 53, 422 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the game breakbacker interception in which he threw in the final minute of the game to Nigel Bradham right after an unfortunate incident happened with Eagles cornerback Avery Maddox. So, Avante Maddox. Thoughts and prayers out to Maddox's family. He got concussed and he was barely moving when the team was surrounding him and all the medical people. Let's hope that he'll be okay, because that play was just flat out nasty. But more importantly for the Eagles, they came out of there with a much-needed victory, as they still have that fighter's chance to unseat the Cowboys in the NFC East. Alrighty, now we'll go on to college football, where Memphis defeated Navy by a score of 35-23, as Memphis improved to 4-0 in the year. Navy dropped to 2-1. Brady White, 14 of 18, 196 yards and 3 touchdowns. Malcolm Perry, 6 of 10, 82 yards and a touchdown. Navy, as we know, is a ground and pound team, likes to run the ball a lot, and obviously Navy had the lead throughout the game. Memphis pulled away in the second half. I had Memphis winning the game, and my play was the over, so I'm 1-0 to start the week in both college football against the spread and straight up, and obviously 0-1 to start against the spread and straight up in college football. Next up, for the Memphis Tigers, they have to go to UL Monroe next Saturday in a 3:45 game. And next up for Navy, they host Air Force. That should be an interesting game, with Air Force off to a promising start this season. So, Navy's probably going to be an underdog in that game. You never know, though. All right, baseball. Going to go over the scores from last night, look at today's games, and what's still to be clinched and what not. The Brewers defeat the Reds 5-3 in Marty Brennaman's final game. I believe it was his final game. It was his last home game for sure, I believe. Milwaukee 89-70, Cincinnati 73-86. Chase Anderson to win, Luis Castillo to loss, Josh Hader to save. Brewers are still in the mix for the NL Central, surprisingly enough. Twins over the Tigers 10-4. Minnesota has the division locked up, so meaningless games for them. 99-60, Detroit 46-112. Drew Smeltzer to win, Jordan Zimmerman the loss. I believe they still have that puncher's chance of home field against the Yankees, but I don't know if the Yankees had clinched that or not. That magic number for the Yanks might be down to 1. the Yankees should be able to win a game in Texas this weekend against the Rangers, who don't have good pitching, and they had their best pitcher go against the Red Sox yesterday. We'll talk about that disaster when we get to the Ranger-Red Sox game, trust me. But Minnesota will probably be your 3 seed playing the Yankees. And then Detroit's obviously in lockstep to potentially clinch the worst record in the league. And speaking of that Rangers-Red Sox game, the Rangers come out on top 7-5. This was classic Bush League by the Rangers. 76-83, Boston 83-76. Mike Minor the win. Getting charged with the loss for Boston was Ryan Weber. And getting the save for Texas was Jose Leclerc. How is it Bush League? They send Mike Minor out in the 9th inning to try to get his 200th strikeout. They let a pop-up drop, which was unacceptable. So, Mike Minor gets his strikeout not only because that pop-up was dropped, but they got that strike 3 call on a pitch that was clearly a ball. Like, that's a disaster. And that 200 strikeout season by Mike Minor is going to be a big asterisk. Yes, he's had a good season, but how the Rangers let him get that strikeout and the umps too is just flat out Bush League. And to me, that 200 strikeout season will always be an asterisk because the Rangers dropped the pop-up and they umps blew the strike call. And obviously the player that dropped the pop-up, I believe, was first baseman Ronald Guzman. So just awful. And very Bush League. And I just hate that part about the game. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, Texas has the Yankees coming up. Boston has the Orioles at home to close the season. Dodgers over to Padres. 1-0 Dodgers leapfrog the Yankees for the second best record. They're 103-56. San Diego 70-89. Clayton Kershaw to win. Joey Lucchesi lost. Kenta Maeda to save. Giants over to Rockies 8-3. Giants 77-82. Colorado 68-91. Getting the win for San Francisco was Sam Coonrod, and getting charged with loss for the Rockies was Jesus Tinoco. Obviously now Bruce Bochy in his final weekend as Giants manager. Nationals over to Phillies 6-3. The Nats are 90-69. Phillies 79-80. Steven Strasburg to win. Jason Vargas lost. Dakota Hudson the save. Phillies under 500 for the first time all season. Nats on the verge of clinching home field in the wildcard game. Pirates over to Cubs 9-5. The Cubs are an absolute mess. They've lost 9 straight. They've quit on Joe Madden. They're 82-77 on the year. Pittsburgh is 68-91. Joe Musgrove the win. Jose Quintana the loss. The Cubs are playing like a team that knows that their manager isn't coming back. It's the worst kept secret in sports. Everyone knows that Joe Madden's going to get fired. Everyone knows that Joe Madden's going to be bound for another job, whether it's the Padres. Ken Rosenthal reported that the Angels might fire Brad Ausmus just so they can bring in Joe Madden. That's what the Cubs did a few years ago. They had Rick Renteria for a year, got rid of him because they knew that Joe Madden was available, so they went out and got him. And now there's talks that the Angels could do something similar with Ausmus, who I'm not a fan of. I think Brad Ausmus is a very bad manager, so he should probably just lose his job because the Angels have flat out underachieved. But it's really not fair because they didn't have Shohei Ohtani most of the year, and Shohei Ohtani didn't even pitch. Mike Trout missed the last couple weeks of the season, but they were already out of it with a healthy Mike Trout. And quite frankly, they have no pitching. So not all of it can be blamed on Ausmus, but if you have the opportunity to go out and get Joe Madden, you do it, even though Joe Madden's older. The game might have passed him by, but it's worth a shot. Just like I think it's worth a shot for a team like the Mets or the Phillies to go out and try to entice Joe Girardi to come back to managing, or Buck Showalter or somebody like that. So we'll see. And I think Monday morning or even Sunday night, you'll hear inevitable news from Jeff Passan or Ken Rosenthal that Joe Madden is indeed out as Cubs manager. I'm probably going to get somebody from Chicago on the podcast next week to talk about the ramifications of this and what's next for the Cubs long term if their window is closed with this era already. And it's funny because all we heard was that this was going to be a dynasty. Dynasty my ass. Only one championship in a 4-year span. We heard, let's face it, the dynasty in the makings, the Houston Astros, not the Chicago Cubs. That's where we were wrong, as in sports fans. We all thought it was going to be the Cubs because they had Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo and Javier Baez and all these guys and John Lester and the list goes on. And then they've just flat out underachieved. And I think that whomever wins the Central, I think it's fair to say, credit to that team, but the Cubs underachieved. So that's certainly going to be that scenario, and that's how I felt last year. And the Cubs probably should have fired Joe Maddon last year after they lost Game 163 at home to the Brewers and lost the wildcard game at home against the Rockies. They probably kept Joe Maddon 1 year too late, and that championship really bought him one more year longer than he should have got as Cubs manager. Like I said, we'll get more into this on Monday, assuming that Joe Maddon is out of a job. Marlins over to Mets 4-2. Mets are done. They were eliminated the other day. They're 83-76. Miami's 56-103. Joe Brigham the win. Zach Wheeler the loss. Jose Urena the save. Wheeler possibly his final start as a Met. White Sox over the Indians 8-0. The Indians might be done. They're 2 back with 3 to play. I don't see a world where that happens. There might have to be a Game 163 if the Indians were to perhaps make the postseason. 70-88 are the White Sox now. Cleveland 93-66. Getting the win for the White Sox was Josh Osich, and getting charged with the loss for Cleveland was Aaron Savali, who has been great for them down the stretch and had a little bit of a hiccup against a bad team. So I think the Indians are done, and I think we'll be seeing Athletics Rays in the wild card game. Angels over the Astros 4-3 in 12 innings on a walk-off error, it looks like, by Kyle Tucker. And then Caleb Coward scored the game-winning run. Angels are 72-87, Houston 104-55. Trevor Cale to win, Joe Bigiani the loss. I'm not concerned about the Astros. I think they have home field wrapped up. They really don't have to try. Yankees lost too many games down the stretch against the Rays, Blue Jays, and who's the other bad team they lost to? The Tigers. Not to suggest the Rays are bad. I don't think the Rays are bad at all. I think the Rays are good, but I knew it was a bad team other than the Blue Jays that they lost to within the last couple weeks. That ultimately is what came back to cost the Yankees home field advantage. The only way that happens if Yankees sweep Texas, and Houston, I guess, would have to get swept by the Mariners, which is unlucky. Or, I'm sorry, the Angels. This is their first game against the Angels, but the Angels come away victorious as the Astros don't clinch home field yet. Athletics over the Mariners 3-1. The A's are very close to clinching. Oakland 96-63, Seattle 66-93. This was King Felix's final game as a Mariner, kind of an emotional game for the Mariners. Sean Manaea to win, Felix Hernandez lost, Liam Hendricks to save. Felix pitched well in his final game. 5 in the third innings, 5 at 3 runs, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. Had a bad year though, ERA 6.4. I just think this guy is cooked. But emotional start for Fernandez. The fans were into it. He was a great pitcher when he was in his prime, a Cy Young winner. It's just unfortunate the Mariners never built a contender around him, or they thought they did, but they didn't. And their managers really haven't been that great. I think they can make a change at manager this offseason, too. I wouldn't rule that out. Scott Servais, I don't think he's a good manager, so I think there's a chance he's fired in a week from now, so we'll see. We already saw the manager from the Padres, Andy Green, get fired. I think you'll see, obviously, Joe Maddon, Mickey Callaway, Gabe Kapler, maybe Dave Martinez if the Nationals lose in the wild card game. I'm not going to put him on that list. John Mattingly got extended, so he won't be fired. I think that there's a chance that Bud Black can get fired, but I don't think so because they had the back-to-back playoff years, and a lot went wrong for them this year. So I don't want to put him on the he's definitely getting fired list. I thought Clint Hurdle was going to get fired, but he's coming back. Ned Yost is retiring. Bruce Bochy's retiring. I think if the Dodgers lose before the World Series, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Dave Roberts getting let go, but I don't see it. And in the American League, I think Kevin Cash will be back another year. Alex Cora is no doubt going to be back. Although they did fire their GM after a year removed from the World Series, so you never know. I don't think they'll fire Cora, though. Dombrowski was just there longer, and I know the Red Sox just want to go in another direction in terms of a general manager, but I think they'll keep Cora. Aaron Boone's not going anywhere. He might win the Manager of the Year this year, all the injuries the Yankees have had. Rocco Baldelli, I think, has a chance to win Manager of the Year as well. I think Baldelli would be my choice over Boone, only because the Twins overachieved. And the Yankees were supposed to be good, although they had a ton of injuries, so they have that narrative in Boone's favor. Another manager that I think has a chance of getting fired is Rick Renteria, because I think that the White Sox expected to be better. Although 70 wins for the White Sox may seem like an accomplishment, because I feel like they haven't got to that point in a long time, but it's still a market in Chicago that really wants them to do more. I don't think that Renteria goes, but it's certainly now the realm of possibility. T-Dot's not going anywhere. Ron Gardenhire's not going anywhere. AOS, I think Cervase is gone. I think Brad Ausmus is gone because I think they're going to hire Joe Madden. And Chris Woodward did a good job this year with the Rangers, so I don't think he's going anywhere. AJ Hinch is the best manager in the game, arguably, right there at T-Dot, so I don't think he's going anywhere either. Like I said, we'll talk more about the managers and stuff on Monday. Let's look ahead to today's games. Game 1 of a doubleheader, you have the Tigers and the White Sox. Ivan Nova and Tyler Alexander going for their respective teams. Nova hot and cold this year. Indians Nationals, this is the interleague series that closes the year. Indians need all 3 games to at least be in the game 163. Zach Plesac and Austin Voth. And let's say if Cleveland does win all 3 and wins 96 games and say that they don't even make the playoffs, that's ridiculous. 96 wins and you're not in the playoffs. Like, do you ever see that in baseball? I think that shows how good the American League is. But at the same time, it shows how many tanking teams are in the American League. And especially there in the Central with the White Sox, the Twins, or I'm sorry, not the Twins, the Tigers and the Royals. So that's why the Indians and Twins have such high win totals. Although I do think the Indians are a very good team. Lost one of their best players towards the end of the season, but he's back now. I'm talking about Jose Ramirez with that injury. They trade away Trevor Bauer. But the Indians and T-Dot deserve a lot of credit for hanging around in there. And I think if Ramirez was healthy, this is a for sure playoff team and probably a division winner as well. Reds, Pirates. So 2 awful teams from the NL Central. Anthony DeSclafani and Stephen Brault. Marlins, Phillies. We'll see if the Phillies can finish over 500. You have Pablo Lopez and Vince Velasquez. They need to sweep the Marlins in order to finish over 500. So I think there's kind of pressure on the Phillies here to go over to finish with the winning record, but it's a lost season, disastrous season for them, a season in which they were expected to be good. I didn't think that they were going to be a playoff team because of their pitching, but their front office and Gabe Kapler are going to hear it. Bryce Harper's going to hear it because even though it's not his fault, he's the face of that franchise now, and he's highly paid, and he was paid to take this team to big places and big things, and he has not done that. So I feel like Bryce is going to get a lot of blame for the Phillies' disappointing season. Rays at the Blue Jays. Rays can finish the year at 98 wins. The Rays have not clinched yet. Tyler Glasnow and TJ Zook. I believe 1 is their magic number, so they're very close to clinching. Braves at the Mets. Braves locked into the 2 seed. Mets are done. Dallas Keuchel, Marcus Stroman. Mets are going to finish with a winning record. Red Sox host the Orioles, Nathan Eovaldi and Asher Wojciechowski. Tigers, White Sox, Game 2 of a doubleheader. Starters are not up yet. Maybe they'll go with openers. 8 o'clock ESPN 2, Cubs at the Cardinals. You have Alec Mills and Dakota Hudson. This is easy. Cardinals are going to win this game. They're going to clinch the Central tonight. And I think that the Cubs are just toast. They know their manager's getting fired. I think there's a chance they lose their last 12 games, which would be an epic collapse by Joe Madden. And it's funny that this collapse kind of reminds me of that Red Sox collapse a little bit from 2011. But the only thing is that the Red Sox were eliminated on the final day of the season, and the Cubs were eliminated on Wednesday. So that's the only difference between those two. And it's funny because I believe that Theo Epstein was a part of that Red Sox collapse as well as this Cubs collapse this year. So, give me the Cardinals here at home. I think they blow the doors off the Cubs. I could see this being like a 10-3 Cardinals win. Brewers at the Rockies. The Brewers, 89-70, Zach Davies and Antonio Senzatela. They're actually one back of the Cardinals. So I think the Cardinals need 2 more wins to win the division rather than 1, because if they finish tied, there's going to be a game 163 for the division. So, Brewers under some pressure here. I think the Cardinals end up sweeping the Cubs, and then the Brewers drop 1 to the Rockies. But for this to be tied, the Brewers would have to sweep the Rockies to get to 92, and the Cardinals would have to drop 1, and then it'd be a tie. And if the Cardinals drop 2 and the Brewers drop 1, then that's going to be a tie. But if, say, the Brewers sweep if the Brewers win 1 and the Cardinals get swept, then that's a tie. And obviously, I think the Cardinals are 2 wins away from the division. Well, really 3. I think the magic number for them is 3. I'm not really so sure on that. So, keep an eye on that. I think that's the biggest storyline of the weekend. But let's say the Cardinals get swept and the Brewers win 2 out of 3. So, it'll be 90 versus 91. So, that's a world where the Brewers win the division and play the Braves, and then the Cardinals would have to play the Nats in the wild card game. That would be sexy if it's Cardinals-Nats in the wild card game rather than Brewers-Nats. Because I feel like we know what's going to happen if it's Brewers-Nats, but if it's Cardinals-Nats, then you never know, really. So we'll see. And then the other way the Brewers can win this division is if the Cardinals lose 2 out of 3, say they get to 92 wins. 91 wins, and then the Brewers sweep the Rockies, and that's how the Brewers could potentially win that division as well. So if they have the same number of wins, then see a game 163. If the Brewers finish with more wins, obviously they win the division, and the other side, if the Cardinals finish with more wins, then they win the division. I ultimately think that the Cardinals sweep the Cubs, and then the Brewers end up dropping 1 to the Rockies at some point. I don't know when that will be. So that's that. Twins at the Royals at 8:15. You got Jose Barrios and Eric Skoglund. Twins have like the slimmest chances, I believe, to potentially take over that 2 seed. Let me see. They have 60 losses. New York has 57. So, say if the Yankees lose out, Twins win out, that the Yankees have the tiebreaker over Minnie, though. So, Yankees have the 2 seed locked up, so forget about the idea that the Twins could steal the 2 seed. That's out of the question. Yankees have the tiebreaker over them, and Yankees have the 2 seed locked up, so never mind about that. So, Yankees really not playing for much, although Houston lost the other day. There is a world where the Yankees get home field, and they are at the Rangers. You have James Paxton going up against Joe Palumbo. Yankees are obviously big favorites here. So they have 57 losses, and Houston has 55. We'll talk about that in a second, but 9:40 Padres Diamondbacks. Eric Lauer and Taylor Clark, meaningless game there. Houston at LA, you have Verlander, and you have... I'm sorry, no, I thought Verlander was going tonight, but it's Jose Urquidy against Patrick Sandoval. So this could be a situation where Houston might drop another game. I don't believe in Urquidy, 4.63 ERA. His whip isn't bad, 1.17. Patrick Sandoval's meh, too. So I like the over in this game, if anything. So Houston, 55 losses. New York, 57. Let's say New York sweeps Texas. I think there's a possibility of that happening because Texas doesn't have any pitching. They might be emotional a little bit, last home series. But that's why I think that Houston ultimately get home field, because I think the Yankees drop probably the last game. So Texas would win their final game at home before they move. So 57 losses. Houston has 55. So if Houston loses 2 out of 3 to the Angels, so that brings us to 57. New York sweeps Texas, 57. So Astros have the tiebreaker. So the Astros are a win away from clinching home field. So the Astros have to get swept, and their loss total would drop to 58. And Yankees would have to sweep Texas. So Houston's magic number to clinch home field advantage is 1. I think they probably get it done tonight. But if it's still in play for Sunday, then that makes it real interesting. So yeah, the magic number for Houston to clinch home field over the Yankees in the American League playoffs is 1. And then Dodgers have 56 losses. Oh, by the way, Athletics Mariners, we skipped that game. Mike Fiers and Justice Sheffield. A's magic number 1. And then Dodgers at the Giants, Bruce Bochy's final series as Giants manager, Walker Buehler, Johnny Cueto. I think there's a world where the Yankees jump the Dodgers because, San Francisco, like Texas, is going to be playing hard, but San Francisco's case is their manager. Like, you want to go out and win the series against the Dodgers for your manager. Have Bruce Bochy come out on a good note. So I think the Giants have a legit chance to win the series against the Dodgers. The Dodgers are getting ready for the playoffs. I don't think they care about home field versus New York or Houston. But there's a world where they jump Houston. Let's say if Houston loses 2 out of 3, so they go to 57. Dodgers sweep San Francisco. They stay at 56. So that would work. Let's say the Dodgers win 2 out of 3, so they'd have 57 losses, and then Houston loses 2 out of 3. 57. I don't know who the tiebreaker in this case would go to. Probably the Astros, I would say. So, if the Dodgers would have, in theory, have to sweep San Francisco if they have any chance. And I don't see that happening, just like I don't see New York sweeping Texas or, quite frankly, the Angels sweeping Houston. So, you never know with all this. We'll see how it goes. And I talked about all the scenarios with the Central and home field advantage in the American League. So that's that for baseball talk. WNBA finals begin on Sunday. Game 1, 3 o'clock ESPN. Sun Mystics from Washington, D.C. This should be a fun series. And I think this is the first time since they dropped the conferences for the playoffs where you have 2 East teams in the finals. So that's interesting. Elena Delle Donne, the league MVP. She's wonderful. She's carried the Mystics all year long. The Sun are a very good team in their own right. Jonquel Jones, Jasmine Thomas. You have Alyssa Thomas. You have a lot of good players on both sides. And then, obviously, on the Washington side, you have Natasha Cloud, Christy Tolliver. I'm going to take the Washington Mystics to win this series in 4 games. The best player on the court will be Delle Donne. I think she wins the Finals MVP as well. So, again, Mystics, 4 games. I think the Mystics obviously win Game 1. They'll win Game 2. And then the Sun will win at home in Game 3. And then Mystics win a close one, Game 4. That's how I think it plays out. I think the Sun will be competitive throughout the series, but I just think that Washington's a better team with the best player in the league on their team in Elena Delle Donne. So give me the Mystics in Game 1. I don't know what the point spread is yet, but ultimately I think that they'll come away as WNBA champions for the 2019 WNBA season. I'm going to get Jeff Maglicetti on the podcast maybe on Tuesday so he can talk about this, the NFL, preview NHL a little bit, talk about the baseball playoffs as well. He's one of my favorite guys to have on the podcast. He does a great job for what he does. He obviously covers the Jets, and he used to cover the Giants. He covers the New York Liberty and the WNBA. So he's obviously one of my A-list guests that I like to have on, and he'll be more than welcome to come on anytime he likes, and I would really like to have him on next week to talk about what I discussed. College football, Week 5 picks. I'm off to a solid start so far this week with the Memphis Tigers obviously winning on the field, and I took the over. So we'll start with tonight. And by the way, the odds and sides and totals come to you courtesy of DraftKings. We'll start tonight. The first game we'll talk about will be played at 7 o'clock on ESPN between Duke and Virginia Tech, 2-2-1 teams. Virginia Tech is favored by 2.5. There are a lot of people that like Duke in this spot, and this is very reminiscent of 2 weeks ago when a lot of people like Carolina as a dog against Wake Forest. And by the way, same conference as that. And guess what? I think it's going to be the same result as well. There's some juice on Virginia Tech with minus 114 with the minus 2.5. So my play here, Virginia Tech will win on the field, and I think they cover the 2.5. I actually bet it at 3, and I like that it went down to 2.5 because if the 2.5 covers, it's a win for the podcast, although it's a push in my savings. 8 o'clock, Fox Sports 1, Penn State at Maryland. Penn State is 3-0. Maryland is 2-1. Penn State's also ranked 12th in the country. Penn State's laying 6.5. The juice in their favor at minus 115. Over under 16.5. I love the Maryland Terrapins here. I love them. They're getting 6.5. They're home. That crowd's going to be ruckus. Penn State was not impressive against Pitt. And I just don't love them on the road. And that Pitt game was in Beaver Stadium, by the way. So I don't love Penn State on the road. Not only do I think Maryland covers the 6.5, I think they'll win the game outright. They are plus 185 on the money line. So give me the Maryland Terrapins to win the game on the field and to cover the 6.5. Although I do like the over at 16.5 as well. But I just like Maryland more than the over. 8 o'clock on CBS Sports Network, you have San Jose State at Air Force State. Air Force State is laying 19. The over-under is 57.5. Air Force obviously coming off, San Jose State coming off that big win over Arkansas. This screams classic letdown. So give me Air Force minus the 19. And the over-under is 57.5 if I did not mention that earlier. So Air Force wins and covers the 19. 10:30 ESPN, you have California hosting Arizona State. Cal's laying 3.5. The over-under is 42.5. I'm going to take Arizona State getting to 3.5. Not only do I think they cover the number, they win the game outright. They're plus 155 on the money line. I just think Cal's a somewhat fraudulent 3-0, and they're 3-0 because the refs blew a call in that Ole Miss game a week ago, so that's why they're 3-0, and obviously Washington took them for granted, so I'm not a huge fan of this Cal team as well as they are defensively. I just think that Arizona State's also a good defensive team, and I think they win this game outright. They have the better quarterback, and I think they're just flat out the better team. So give me Arizona State here to cover the 3.5, and I think they win the game outright. And by the way, I had Arizona State plus 5, and it went down to 3.5, so 1.5 difference from when I bet it. Saturday games, 12 o'clock, you have Michigan hosting Rutgers. Michigan is laying 27.5. The over-under is 49. I love the Wolverines to win and cover the 27.5. Prime bounce back spot against a terrible Rutgers team. Rutgers is the worst team in the Power 5. So give me Michigan to win and the cover the 27.5. Northwestern at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's laying 24. The over-under is 46. I think Wisconsin wins the game on the field, but I just think that Northwestern covers the 24. I think Northwestern is a team that obviously stinks offensively, but I think I could see them getting stopped and I could see them getting a backdoor. So I'm going to say that the Huskies win this game like 34-20, if that is possible, which I think it is, and that's an easy cover for Northwestern. Texas A&M at Arkansas. Arkansas is getting 23.5. The over-under is 61. I love Texas A&M here. This is a prime bounce-back spot after their loss against Auburn. I got A&M at 23.5, and it's still there. The juice is at minus 120, so the public's on my side, and I think they easily cover this game. I think Arkansas stinks, and you saw that last week when they lost at home to San Jose State. So I'm going to say Texas A&M wins this game like 50-20 or something like that. Texas Tech at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's laying 28. The over-under is 69.5. I love the over. I think that Oklahoma could put up 60 by themselves, and Texas Tech can put up like 25. So that's like an easy over for me here. So give me the over 69.5 in Texas Tech, Oklahoma. I got it at 73. For some reason, it dropped 4 points. So give me over 69.5. The number 28 is kind of sketchy. That screams push to me. So give me over in Texas Tech, Oklahoma. BYU at Toledo. BYU's laying 2.5. The over under 16.5. Give me Toledo here, getting the 2.5. I think they win the game on the field. They're plus 110 on the money line. I just think that BYU is a team that's been through a lot, and Toledo is due for like a good win over a solid group of 5 teams. So give me Toledo here to not only cover the 2.5, but to win the game outright. Kansas at TCU. TCU's laying 14.5. The over-under is 49. How did this number drop is my question. Yeah, TCU lost a week ago to SMU, but Kansas is bad. I'm betting against Kansas till they show me something against a team that is, very superior to them. Yeah, they forced West Virginia into some field goals, but they still didn't cover the point spread. They're a 4.5-point dog, and they lost by 5. I mean, that was a home game, and credit to them for holding West Virginia to field goals and having a chance to perhaps steal that game from them. But I feel like TCU minus 14.5 is an absolute steal. I got it at 16.5. I think TCU wins this game. Good bounce-back win for them. Opportunity, 38-20. That gets it done for me. So give me TCU here to win and cover. Northern Illinois at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's laying 6.5. The over-under is 51.5. Guess what? Not only do I like Northern Illinois plus 6.5, I like them to win the game on the field. They are plus 195 on the money line. And I just don't think that Vandy's a good team. They are arguably the worst team in the SEC. Them and Arkansas. So give me Northern Illinois getting 6.5, and I think they win the game on the field. The over-under is 51.5, if I didn't mention that earlier. So Northern Illinois upset special. Buffalo at Miami of Ohio. Buffalo's laying 2.5. The over-under is 57.5. Letdown spot for Buffalo after their big win over Temple. So give me Miami of Ohio getting the 2.5. I think they win the game outright. They are plus 110 on the money line. They were actually favored in the game earlier in the week. but the line moved in Buffalo's favor because they saw what they did to Temple. And I get the what have you done for me lately thing. But this is just a spot for Buffalo where I could see them having a letdown. So give me Miami of Ohio getting 2.5, and I think they win the game outright. Middle Tennessee at Iowa. Iowa's laying 23. The over-under's 51.5. This was a tougher call for me, quite frankly. I am going to say over 51.5 is the play. I obviously think that the Hawkeyes win the game on the field, but I just like the over here because I just think that Iowa's an improved offensive team, and I think that Middle is a bad defensive team. I remember I took the under when they played Duke a few weeks ago. That obviously was wrong. So give me the over 51.5. I think Middle can score a little bit on Iowa in garbage time. So I could see Iowa winning this game like 40-23 or something like that, and that would qualify as an over. Central Michigan at Western Michigan. Western is laying 16.5. The over-under is 59. Central Michigan is not a good team. As well as they played against Miami, I think that it was more about Miami looking ahead a little bit and disrespecting their opponent. This team is horrendous. Western Michigan is actually a good team, and they were just overvalued a week ago against Syracuse. But give me over 59. I think that both of these teams could get to the 30s in points. So over 59, obviously Western Michigan wins. Holy Cross at Syracuse. Syracuse laying 38.5. The over-under is 55. And by the way, Central Michigan, Western Michigan, I could see that being like a 50-30 final. Syracuse laying 38.5. The over-under is 55. I think Syracuse is going to cover the 38.5. I just don't think Holy Cross is a good team in the FCS. So I could see Syracuse winning this game like 50-10 or something, and that would obviously qualify as a Syracuse win and cover. You have Delaware at Pitt. Pitt's laying 28. The over-under is 50.5. I think Pitt will win the game, but I think Delaware is going to cover the 28. I just think that Pitt's going to have a little bit of a letdown after the big win over UCF. So I'm just going to say that Pitt wins by like 20 rather than 28 or 30. You have the Clemson Tigers at North Carolina Tar Heels. I thought this was a night game. This is a 3:30 game. That's interesting. Clemson's laying 27.5. The over-under 60. The juice is on Carolina. My buddy Nick Costos likes Carolina. So maybe that's why the juice is on Carolina. And I got him at 27. And the over-under went from 61 to 60. This is tough. I'm going to take the over 60 as the play, though. I don't feel strongly about it. But Carolina is a team that tends to go over the point spreads or the totals. So I think Clemson wins this game like 45-23, and that would qualify as an over. USC at Washington. Washington's laying 10.5. The over-under is 60.5. Give me the over 60.5 in this game. I think both offenses can score. I think Washington has a good defense, but I think USC's offense is a unit that's been humming. I like that this game's a day game rather than a night game, because if it was a night game, I probably would lay the points with Washington. But instead, I think USC can air it out a little bit. I think both of these teams get loose. I think that Washington probably wins this game by double digits. So a 37-24 final would give me the over in this game. So give me the over 60.5 for USC Washington. Virginia at Notre Dame. Virginia's getting 11. The over-under is 48.5. I'm going to take Virginia plus the 11 as the play here. This makes me nervous as hell. But Notre Dame, after a big game, whether it's a win or a loss, tends to not really be their best. So I just think that this game is closer than the number. I think that Notre Dame wins the game something like 30-23 or something like that. So give me Virginia getting the 11. Although I do like the over 48.5 as well, but I like Virginia against the spread better. Wake Forest at Boston College. BC's getting 5.5. The over under 69. This was tough in terms of whether I should take the points or the over, because I like both plays a lot. I'm going to take the points with Boston College. They're getting 5.5. I think they win the game on the field, actually. So, give me Boston College plus 5.5. It's in the juices in their favor, minus 112. Moneyline, they're plus 165. So, Boston College gets a game that they absolutely have to have. I think Wake Forest is looking ahead a little bit. So, trap game for Wake Forest. Boston College wins on the field as a 5.5 point underdog. Ole Miss at Alabama. Bama's laying 38. The over-under 61. Roll Tide roll. Give me Alabama. They're laying 38. I think they win this game like maybe 50 to maybe 10. So, give me Bama laying the big number. Maybe it's 60-20. Maybe it's 60-14. But I think they cover the 38. Although I do like the over 61 as well. Temple hosts Georgia Tech. Temple's laying 9. The over-under's 48.5. The over-under's off the board. I guess it's moving. But I don't like that side. I like the -9 for Temple. That's one of my best plays of the entire weekend. You're going to see that on my Pick 10, 5 football, 5 NFL feature that I do almost every week now. I just think that Georgia Tech's a bad team, and this is a prime bounce-back spot for Temple. So I expect them to go out and win this game by double digits. I think Temple can win this game like 38-23 or something like that. So Temple, easy win over Georgia Tech, and Jeff Collins is in for a rude awakening in his homecoming. Indiana at Michigan State. Indiana's getting 14. The over-under is 44. The fact that this went down to 14 scares me the living hell. I am taking the Hoosiers to cover. I think that the Spartans are looking ahead a little bit. They always do good when the world's against them, and they always do bad when people expect them to cover. So I think Indiana covers the point spread, but obviously Sparty wins. I'm going to say Sparty wins like 34-23 or something like that. Or maybe it's 24-13 or 27-16. It's going to be something like that. So Michigan State wins, Indiana covers. Florida Atlantic at Charlotte. Charlotte is laying 1. The over-under is 65. I'm taking the Owls of Florida Atlantic. I initially had Charlotte written down as a pick, but I'm changing my mind. I think FAU is the right side here. I just think that Charlotte's being a little overvalued here as a favorite. I would have liked it better if Charlotte was the dog, but FAU's the dog, and I was talking to FAU. So give me FAU +1. The over-under is 65. FAU minus 106 on the money line. So FAU +1 is the play. They'll obviously win the game on the field too. Baylor is hosting Iowa State as a 3-point underdog. The over-under is 55.5. I love Baylor getting the 3. I think they win outright. +130 on the money line. That is one of my best 5 picks of college football this weekend. This is a prime spot for Baylor. Prove it spot. They haven't played anybody good yet. This is their chance to get a signature win, the Open Big 12 play. I don't like what I've seen from Iowa State so far, although the win over UL Monroe is impressive. But I just don't think UL Monroe is very good. So, give me Baylor +3. They win the game outright. Purdue is hosting Minnesota. They're getting a point and a half. The over-under is 53.5. I love Purdue here. They were favored in the beginning of the week. I love them even more as an underdog. They're getting a point and a half, minus 106 on the money line. I think they went outright. Minnesota's fraudulent, and they've been lucky to win pretty much all their games so far this year. So give me Purdue here to win on the field and get a much-needed win for Jeff Brom. Coastal Carolina at Appalachian State. App State's laying 16. The over-under is 60. I am laying the 16 with the Mountaineers. They're just a better team than Coastal Carolina. Akron at UMass. Akron's laying 7. The over-under is 62. This game is so bad. Both of these teams are winless. And I was going to take Akron minus the number. It went up to 7 rather from 6.5. But instead, for my play on the podcast, I'm going with the over 62. I think that both of these teams are going to score. If you have two bad teams, especially two bad defensive teams like these two are, take the over. That's my advice. I would even take the over at 70. So Akron wins on the field, but I'm taking the over 62. Next up, you have SMU at South Florida. South Florida's getting 7.5. The over under 62.5. Prime letdown spot for SMU. I think South Florida not only covers the 7.5, and I think they win the game outright. They're plus 225 on the money line. Towson at Florida. Florida's laying 37.5. The over under 62.5. I am going to take the Gators minus the 37.5. The line actually went up 4.5 points. I just think that Florida's the better team. I think the under's in play here too, but I just feel better about the Gators covering and winning by 40. That's all. Next up, you have Cincinnati at Marshall. Marshall's getting 4.5. The over-under is 48. I think Marshall covers the 4.5, and I think they win the game on the field against a good Cincinnati team. Signature win for Doc Holliday and that team. I actually got Marshall at plus 3 for some reason. It went up to 4.5. I think I like that line even better, and I still like them on the money line at plus 165 too. So Marshall covers the 4.5, wins the game on the field too. We're in the night slate now, 6 o'clock. You have Troy hosting Arkansas State. Troy's laying 7.5. The over-under is 59. I really like the story with Arkansas State. I think they have some mojo going here since after the Georgia fans did the pink out for the Arkansas State coach's wife. I just think that team's been on a good roll. And I like them to cover the 7.5. And you know what? I'm going to take it a step further. I think they win the game outright. They're plus 225 on the money line. I think Troy's good, but I just think there's some positive momentum going with Arkansas State right now, so it's just tough to bet against an inspiring story. So that's just a pick from my heart rather than my gut, although my gut does say that Arkansas State pulls this one out. I just think that they have good karma on their side. So give me Arkansas State getting 7.5 on the road at Troy. Louisiana Lafayette at Georgia Southern. ULL laying 3.5. The over-under is 55. I love Georgia Southern getting the 3.5. I think they win the game outright. Plus 140 on the money line. I just think that Lafayette coming off the big win at Ohio. I think they have a little letdown potential here. Georgia Southern's not a bad team from the Sun Belt. So give me Georgia Southern getting 3.5 at home. They win the game outright. Old Dominion at East Carolina. Old Dominion's laying 3. The over-under is 46.5. Everyone, their brother, loves East Carolina. But I'm going to be contrarian here and take the minus 3 with Old Dominion. I just think East Carolina's overrated. Their quarterback's overrated. Their defense is... Everything about East Carolina is overrated. I was wrong about this team early in the season. I'm going to wait on them. So give me Old Dominion minus 3. I actually got it 1.5, went up to 3, and I love it. New Mexico at Liberty. Liberty's laying 7. The over-under is 73. 7 is a weird number. I think Liberty wins the game, but I love over 73. Both these teams are going to score and score and score. I won't be surprised if there's less than 5 punts in this game. So give me the over 73 with Liberty coming out on top. Next up is Mississippi State at Auburn. Auburn's laying 9.5. The over-under is 46.5. This line keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. I'm laying the 9.5 with Auburn. Mississippi State, Tommy Stevens isn't healthy, but the backup isn't that bad. A lot of people like the Bulldogs as an underdog, but I don't. I'm going to be more contrarian here and play Auburn minus 9.5. I got it at 11. I like it better at 9.5. So give me Auburn here to win and the cover. UConn at UCF. UCF's laying a whopping 44. The over-under 64.5. Give me UCF minus 44. Prime bounce back slot. UConn is the worst team in the AAC. Probably the second worst team in the country behind UMass. Stanford at Oregon State. Oregon State is getting 4.5. The over-under 57.5. Prime upset spot here. Give me the Beavers plus 4.5. I think they win the game outright. The money line's plus 155. But my main play here is the under 57.5. I just think that Stanford unders are kind of the way to go. Their offense stinks. Their defense isn't bad. We saw them get some stops against a good Oregon offense. So I think that they can, get some stops against Oregon State. Although I do think Oregon State obviously wins the game. I just can see Oregon State winning this game like 30-23, and that would still mean an under here. So give me Oregon State to win the game on the field, but the under 57.5. Kansas at Oklahoma State. The Cowboys are laying 40 over under 60.5. Oklahoma State minus 4 is one of my better plays of the weekend. The juice is in their favor at minus 115. I think they can win this game by double digits. The unranked team favored over the ranked team normally works out. The only exception was last week when the refs blew that game for Ole Miss against Cal. So give me the Cowboys minus 4. I think they win this game like 34-23 or something like that. Louisiana Tech against Rice. L Tech is laying 9. The over-under is 48.5. I'm going to lay the 9 with Louisiana Tech. A lot of people like Rice, but I like Louisiana Tech. And the 9, I just think they win this game by double digits to the better team. I'm going to say they win like 40-24 or something like that. South Alabama at Louisiana Monroe. UL Monroe is laying 14. The over-under is 57. For some reason, the total dropped from 59 to 57. I love the over. I just think UL Monroe is going to put up a lot of points on a bad South Alabama defense. So I could see this being like a 45-20 situation here. UTEP against Southern Miss. Southern Miss is laying 26. The over-under is 48. I'm going to take the over in this game too. I just think that Southern Miss is going to put up a crooked number here. Maybe they even do it by themselves. I'm going to say Southern Miss wins this game like 40-10, and even that would qualify as an over. 40-15, 45-17, something like that. UAB at Western Kentucky. UAB is minus 3. The over-under is 47. I love UAB here. Minus the 3. I just don't think Western Kentucky is very good. Next up, you have the Ohio State Buckeyes at the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Ohio State's minus 17. The over-under is 66.5. That line screams push. So this is the last of one of my best 5 plays. I'm going to go with the over 66.5. I think Ohio State can score 50 in this game. I really, really do. I think this could be like a 50-35 type of game, and that would easily hit the over. Maybe 48-20. That would barely hit, but that's, I think, somewhat realistic. So give me over 66.5 with Ohio State and Nebraska. That's one of my best 5 plays of the weekend. If you missed my others, Temple minus 9.5, Baylor plus 2.5. Temple minus 9, Baylor plus 3, Purdue plus 1.5, and Oklahoma State minus 4 are my other 4 of my best 5 picks. And the over 66.5 in Ohio State and Nebraska is the last of the 5. NC State at Florida State. The Seminoles are laying 6.5. The over-under is 61.5. The Seminole overs have really let me down lately, and they've been barely getting it done for me. So I'm going to take the minus 6.5 and go against the grind here. Everybody, the juice is on the plus 6.5 for NC State with the minus 113, but the minus 6.5 is minus 108. So give me the Seminoles minus the 6.5 here I think there's a chance they win this game by double digits. I could see this being like a 35-24 final for the Seminoles. South Carolina against Kentucky. South Carolina's laying 3. The over-under is 54. I am going to take the Gamecocks here. I got them at 1.5, went up to 3. I love this spot for them, so give me the Gamecocks -3 against Kentucky. Colorado State at Utah State. Utah State's laying 24.5. The over-under is 70. I love the over here. I just feel that Colorado State's a team that can score, but is really bad defensively. Utah State is not bad defensively, but I could see them giving up some points early in this game to Colorado State because of like a possible letdown. So I don't feel super about the over in this spot, but I could see a world where Utah State wins like 47-24, and even that would qualify as an over. Houston against North Texas. Houston's getting 8. The over-under is 59.5. This is a weird one to me. I want to take the Cougars outright here, even though they don't have De'Ara King and their season seems like it's going south. I'm going to take them to cover the 8, but I think North Texas probably wins the game. But that's not my favorite play. I do like the over 59.5. I think both of these teams are going to score and score and score, even though Houston has a new quarterback. I just think that North Texas is a team that's good offensively. They'll score some points, and I think Houston will score some points too. I think there's a chance both teams get into the 30s. I'm going to say that North Texas wins the game, but it's over 59.5. Fresno State and New Mexico State. Fresno's laying 19.5. The over-under is 63. I am taking Fresno with the -19.5. I got them at 17.5. It went up 2 points. And I think that New Mexico State stinks. So I'm going to say that Fresno wins by 4 touchdowns, perhaps. UNLV against Wyoming. Wyoming's laying 90. Over-under is 47.5. A lot of people like UNLV as a dog. I'm not one of them. I'm going to be contrarian here and take Wyoming -9. I just like them at home. And I think that UNLV is a good team in the Mountain West. I don't think they're terrible. But I just think that Wyoming's a better team at home. So if UNLV was home getting points, then maybe I would have talked myself into them winning outright. But I just like the spot for Wyoming here. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. Washington State at Utah. Utah's laying 6.5. The over-under is 57.5. I love Utah laying the points. I think they're going to do very well against Wazoo. That was just a bad loss for Wazoo, and I think the Wazoo season can spiral a little bit. So give me Utah minus the 6.5, and I think they can win by double digits, sans all the injuries they have. UCLA at Arizona. Arizona's laying 6.5. The over-under is 71. I'm going to go with another over. I think that both these teams are allergic to defense. I think that both of these teams can get into the 40s, and that would qualify as an easy over. I think UCLA actually wins again. I just think that that's a team with a lot of momentum. I know this could scream letdown, and I'm going to be kicked in the ass if Arizona wins and covers, but I like UCLA to win the game on the field, and I think they win this game like 45-40. So give me the Bruins and DTR, their quarterback, to continue a hot run here. Hawaii at Nevada. Nevada's laying 2.5. The over-under 64.5. I love Nevada to win and cover here. They're the better team at home. I just think Hawaii's overvalued. And that's it on the college picks. Now we're going to switch over to the NFL. 0-1 to start the week. Not very good. I took the Packers minus the 4 against the Eagles. Yikes. Maybe if Jimmy Graham was actually still good, maybe I would have won. But anyway, we're moving on to Sunday. First up is New England at Buffalo. New England's laying 7. The over-under is 42. New England coming off the home win over the Jets. Buffalo coming off a home win over the Bengals. They looked a little bit like they were looking ahead to this spot. I'm going to take the Pats to cover the 7 here. I think the Patriots win this game. Low scoring. I'm going to say they win this game like 24-14. I think this will be close for a while, but New England puts it away late on a Steven Gostkowski field goal to get the cover. Kansas City's at Detroit. Kansas City is laying 6. The over-under is 55. I love the Chiefs laying the 6. I got it at 6.5. It's down to 6. I like it even better at 6. And I think this is like an easy cover for me. They win this game going away 35-17 KC. And I think their defense will show a little bit market improvement, but I just don't love the Lions. This is more of an anti-Lions pick, making the KC defense look good for this week. Cleveland is at Baltimore. The Ravens are getting 7. The over-under is 45. Ravens obviously coming off a tough loss in Kansas City against the Chiefs, where they showed some stuff. Browns' tough home loss against the Rams on Sunday Night Football. I think the Ravens win this game, but I like the under 45. The Brown unders are a trend that we've been seeing the last couple weeks other than week 1. So I'm going to say that this is a 23-20 Ravens victory. I think it comes down to a field goal. That's why Cleveland getting the 7's enticing, but I just like the under better, because both of these teams' defenses are not that bad. Raiders-Colts. The Colts are laying 6.5. The over-under is 45.5. Raiders coming off a bad loss in Minnesota against the Vikings. Colts coming off the home win over the Falcons. I think they keep it rolling, go to 3-1 in the year. I think they cover the 6.5 easily. Yes, T.Y. Hilton's hurt. Yes, they don't have Malik Hooker or Darius Leonard, so their defense might give up some plays and whatnot. So, I still like the Colts here to win and to cover the point spread. I'm going to say they win this game 28-20. So they barely get the cover. The Chargers are at the Dolphins. Chargers laying 15. The over-under is 44. Chargers coming off a bad loss against the Texans at home. Dolphins coming off the loss at home or on the road at Dallas against the Cowboys. The Dolphin unders have been a trend of late, with the exception of week 1 against the Ravens. So, I'm going to make under 44 my play. And I think the Chargers will win this game by a score of 30-10. And I think that offense finally gets going. The defense will get some stops against a bad Dolphins offense. So, give me Chargers 30-10, and I think that the under will hit. The Panthers at the Texans. The Texans are laying 40. Over-under is 47.5. I love the Texans in the spot at home. But you know what I love even more? The over. I think that the Panthers have showed some life offensively with Kyle Allen there. And they obviously have the weapons. Christian McCaffrey, Dylan or CJ Moore, the receiver Moore. And then obviously you have Curtis Samuel, Greg Olsen. So they have a nice foundation on offense. But their defense is vulnerable, as we saw against the Cardinals and even a little bit against the Bucs, although Jameis Winston stinks, as we all know. And their defense gave up a lot of points to the Rams as well. So their defense is vulnerable. Houston's defense is vulnerable as well. I think the Texans win this game by a score of 27-24. So I think it's a field goal game. I like the over 47 as the play here. So Texans win, but I like the over. And that is one of my best 5 NFL plays. And another best 5 NFL play that I mentioned was the Chiefs laying the 6. The Redskins at the Giants. The Redskins are coming off the terrible home loss against the Bears. Case Keenum stunk in that game, and Washington's offense just looked good just because it was garbage time there, and the Bears kind of gave up until that fourth down play when they realized we might need this fourth down to even cover. Giants, emotional, come from behind win in Daniel Jones' first game against the Bucs. They were down 18, came from behind and won. They lost Saquon Barkley in that game due to the ankle sprain. He'll miss about a month or so. He avoids the IR, so that's good news for the Giants. I don't think they'll miss him in this game against a bad Redskins team. Yeah, they don't have a run game now without Barkley, but Jones is a mobile quarterback. And even Trubisky showed off his mobility against that defense, and I think Jones can too. So, give me the New York Football Giants to win, and I like them to cover the 3 easily. The juice is in the Redskins' favor at minus 118. The Giants minus 3 is at minus 104. Give me the Giants to win this game by a score of 34-27. So I'm going to say that the Giants win by a touchdown. I think the Redskins will be competitive because they know that their coach is on the hot seat and it's a division game. Yeah, Case Keenum's not healthy, but the Giants defense stinks. So the over is a good play in that game too, and that's at 49. I'd bet the over as well, but my best play here is the minus 3 because simply I just think that the Redskins are just a worse team than the Giants. Although the worst team on the field is the Giants defense. So, but the best unit on the field might be the Giants offense in this game, right? With Daniel Jones. Yeah, Saquon Barkley's not there, but tough one. So, Giants minus 3, and that's among my best picks as well. And I think the Giants are undervalued here, actually. And the Redskins are a little overvalued. Although, my line for this game was Giants minus 3. I just think that the Redskins are just getting too much publicity as an underdog in this spot. The Titans are at the Falcons. The Falcons are laying 4. The over-under is 45.5. Titans coming off the bad Thursday night loss in Jacksonville against the Jaguars. Falcons coming off the road loss in Indy against the Colts. They hung around that game. I think the Falcons bounce back here and get the win. Their coach is on the hot seat. I think they're going to play hard for him. I think Marcus Mariota stinks. The Titans' offense stinks. I think Atlanta comes out and puts together a good performance. I think they win this game like 30-14. So, give me the Falcons here to win and cover the 4. I got it at 4.5. I like it even better at 4, and that's among one of my best 5 plays of the week in the NFL. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are at the Rams. The Rams are laying 9.5. The over-under is 49.5. I love the Rams here. I think they're going to smash Tampa. I think that Jameis Winston is going to be terrible in this game, and there's going to be talks about him being benched potentially after a horrific game against the Rams. The Rams defense is very good, and I think that it's going to show that it's very good even more. I'm going to say that the Rams win this game like 37-16, and this is a no-brainer lock, minus 9.5. I love it. It's among my best 5 plays, and I'd run away with it. But my lock of the week really is the Chargers in terms of straight up, because anybody really against the Dolphins is a lock at this point. So, give me the Rams minus 9.5, and the juice is minus 115 on the Bucs for whatever reason, and it's minus 106 on the Rams. The Seahawks are at the Cardinals. The Seahawks are favored by 6. The over-under is 48. I love the Cardinals getting the 6. Now do I love them getting the 6? I think they win the game outright. They're plus 200 on the money line, so 2-1 underdogs are the Cardinals. I think they win this game on the field. I think Kyler Murray finally gets his first win. I think they win a shootout. I'm going to say 30-27. I think it's a field goal game. Arizona wins. Biggest division game of the week. Minnesota at Chicago. Chicago's laying 2. The over-under is 38. Tough one here. Both of these quarterbacks I wouldn't trust in the big spot. So, then it comes down to defenses. Bears defense and Vikings defense. Both of these defenses I trust in big spots. But the game's at Soldier Field, so why not just pick the Bears? I'm going to say the Bears win. I think it's close. I'm going to say the Bears win this game like 24-20. Close game. Bears win. That would qualify as an over, although it's at 38. And the juice is on the over, by the way, but I just like the Bears -2 better. I just think that they get the big win here at home. They get the 3-1 on the year. Jacksonville at Denver. Denver's laying 3.5. The over-under 37.5. I like the under 37.5 is my best play here, but to win the game straight up, I'm going to take the Denver Broncos. I think they win this game ugly, 19 to, let's say, 13. I just think it's a low-scoring, ugly defense smashdown. I think the Broncos defense finally shows up in a big spot at home. They need this game badly. So give me Denver to win the game. I like under 37.5 is the best play, though. Dallas at New Orleans. Dallas is favored by 3. The over-under is 47, so the line went up from 2.5 to 3. I like the Cowboys on the road. A lot of people, I think, like New Orleans. The juice is in their favor at -115. Dallas is -3, -106. Dallas obviously coming off the win over the Dolphins. New Orleans coming off the big win in Seattle. And I just don't love the Saints without Drew Brees. Even though they did a good job against the Seahawks, I think the Seahawks are fraudulent. The Cowboys are good. I think this is competitive. I think the Saints will hang around. I just think that the Cowboys will win this game 27-20 on the road. In a place where they have lost in a lot of big spots throughout the years. But I know they've won in this spot a lot throughout the years as well. I remember they were the first team to knock off the Saints in the 2009-10 season when they went undefeated and ultimately won the Super Bowl. And Romo led the Cowboys to a victory in that game. But I think they get a big win here on the road to remain undefeated. And last but not least, the Steelers are hosting the Bengals. Steelers -4 over under 44. Steelers obviously coming off the terrible loss to the 49ers, in which Mason Rudolph turned the ball over a shit ton of times. Bengals coming off the tough loss at Buffalo. I think the Steelers win and cover here. I just think that they finally get off the schneid here. I'm just not in love with this Bengals team. This is more of an anti-Bengals pick than a pro-Steelers pick. Steelers, the juice is against them, -106 in terms of what the public thinks. So the public really likes the Bengals. They're -115 with the +4. So give me the -4 at the Steelers. I think they win this game 26-16. Competitive throughout. But ultimately Pittsburgh gets their first win. I think their field goal kick's a late kick to ensure a double-digit victory for the Steelers. So give me the Steelers here to win this game 26-16. They obviously cover the 4. Best bet of the day brought to you by DraftKings. I am going to do a parlay. Virginia Tech. I'm going to take Harvard against Brown in the FCS. Air Force. I'm going to go to baseball. By the way, those 3 are -106. I'm going to take the Rays because they need that game. I'm going to take the Yankees at Texas. I'm going to take the Brewers at the Rockies because the Brewers have just been on fire. I love the Cardinals at home against the Cubs. I'm going to take the Twins, even though it's a meaningless game for them. I don't feel good about the Astros, so I'm not going to put them on here. I think that's a losable game for them against the Angels. And I'm going to take the Athletics against Seattle because the A's need that game. And I think the Dodgers are in a bit of a trap game as well as they're looking ahead to the playoffs as well. 9 picks, plus $18.90, wagering $1, payout of $19.90. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back on Monday recapping NFL and college. Talk about the baseball playoff picture a little bit. A lot of hockey previews coming up. My big hockey predictions podcast is coming out on Tuesday. Next week, I'm going to have Doug on. I'm going to have Bucci on, Derek on. Maybe we'll get Jeff Maggs on. Going to have Jeff Burns on later, though, to talk about NFL and the baseball playoffs. Maybe I'll try to get a Stanley Cup pick out of him, even though he's not the biggest hockey person out there. But I know he's a fan of the Devils. So maybe we'll get his take on them. And maybe, like I said, I'll try to get out a Stanley Cup pick from him and see what's going on in the horse racing world as well. Hope you guys have a great day, everybody.